Hi, Room 25. Welcome to Lesson 7, Revisiting Percentages. This is going to be a little bit of a review, but it's been a really long time since we've done percentages, so if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I don't remember how to do that, don't worry. Let's look at today's learning target, which is I can solve percent problems by writing and solving an equation. Awesome. Before we get started on the lesson, I'm going to do a quick review. So, the word percent or percentage means out of 100. And so, when it is referring to something as 25%, what that means is 25 out of 100. It's comparing that quantity to the same amount as 25 out of 100. So percentages relate a lot to fractions. So for example, 100% means the entire amount. So if here we have 0% and here we have 100%, remember that 50% is exactly halfway, and 25% is halfway between 0 and 50, and 75 is between 50 and 100. Now, if you're looking for percents of something, it's a lot like looking at fractions. So 25% is a fourth of the whole, because 25 is a fourth of 100. 50 is half of the entire amount. 75 is 3/4, and 100 is all of it, or 100 out of 100. But thinking back to these, what are called landmark fractions, is very helpful. Landmark fractions. The other one that's also super helpful is 10% is 1/10 of that amount. Okay, let's get back to the actual lesson. Alrighty, number talk. Again, it's not really going to be a number talk because you're by yourself and I'm by myself and can't talk to people that way. So, solve each problem mentally or in your head. Bottle A contains 4 ounces of water, which is 25% of the amount of water in bottle B. How much water is there in bottle B? So remember, flipping back here, 25% is equal to a fourth of the bottle. So 4 ounces is 1/4. So you could think in your head, 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4, that is going to give you 100%, because this is 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. The answer to number 1 is going to be 16. There is 16 ounces of water in the entire bottle. 100% of the bottle is 16. Okay, looking at number 2. Bottle C contains 150% of the water in bottle B. How much water is there in bottle C? Okay, so we figured out that bottle B has 16 ounces in it, and that is 100%. So in order to figure out what 150% is, you need to first figure out what 50% of 16 is. So you can look back here to help you, or you can just think about what 50% means, what it's telling you to do. So 50% of bottle B would be 8 ounces. And we know that 100% is 16. And so 150% would just be those added together, which is going to give you a total of 24 ounces. Okay. Last one says, bottle D contains 12 ounces of water. What percentage of the amount of water in bottle B is this? Okay, so you have 12 out of 16. So it wants to know what percentage this is. So in order to do this, we can take this fraction and we can reduce it until we find a landmark fraction. So in order to reduce a fraction, we need to find a common factor that they both share. I know that a common factor of 12 and 16 is 2. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 2. And I'm going to get 6 over 8. Now, I know that I can go even smaller than that because 6 and 8 can also be divided by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. Now, right here, 3/4, that is a landmark fraction. So if you look back at our timeline, 3/4 is equal to 75%. So the answer to C is 75%. You could have done this many different ways, but that's just the way that I chose to think about it. Again, it did tell you to do it in your head, but it's okay if you did it on paper as well. Alrighty. 7.2. Answer each question and show your reasoning. So A says, is 60% of 400 equal to 87? Is 60% of 400 equal to 87? Okay, so there's a couple ways you could solve this. One, you can kind of just think about if it even makes sense. So 60% is pretty close to 50%, which is 1/2. So we can think, okay, well, half or 50% of 400 is around 200. Well, it is 200. And so it's not very likely that 60%, which is even higher than 50%, is equal to 87. That just does not make sense. In order to actually prove that this doesn't work, we can go ahead and solve this. So in order to solve this, we could take 60 over 100 to represent 60%, and we can multiply it by 400, okay, or 400 over 1. So we have to do 60 times 400, 0 times 0. Okay, 6 times 0 is 0, 6 times 0 is 0, 6 times 4 is 24. We're going to end up with 24,000 over 100. We can get rid of 2 zeros, and the answer is 240. Now this makes a lot more sense because of our previous reasoning that 50% of 400 is equal to 200. So 60% equaling 240 makes a lot more sense. Okay, so for the first one, for A, the answer is no, it equals 240. All right, B, is 60% of 200 equal to 87? Okay, again, we can also think about this. We can think about 50% of 200. We know that that is going to be 100. And so 60% is a little bit higher. And so the number is going to be a little bit higher than 100. So we can already kind of see that no, it's probably not going to be 87. But let's go ahead and solve it. 60 over 100 times 200 over 1. 6 times 0 is 0, 6 times 0 is 0, 6 times 2 is 12. Okay, we're left with 12,000 over 100. Again, we can cancel out 2 zeros. And we are left with 120 over 1, or 120. Which, like I mentioned earlier, it's a little bit greater than 100. And so that makes sense. So B is also no, because 60% of 200 is 120. Okay, let's look at C. Is 60% of 120 equal to 87? Okay, I know that 50% of 120 is 60. And 60% is going to be a little bit greater than 60. 87 is a little bit greater than 60. So 87 could be the answer. Let's see. 60 over 100 times 120 over 1. 6 times 0 is 0, 6 times 2 is 12, 6 times 1 is 6, plus 1 is 7. We have 7,200 over 100. Can cross these out. We're left with 72 over 1, or 72. So although it could have been close based off of our reasoning, it is not true. 60% of 120 is equal to 72. So good thing we did the math. Let's see. Number 2, 60% of x is equal to 87. Write an equation that expresses the relationship between 60% x and 87. Okay, if you're feeling up to the challenge, pause the video and try this on your own. 60% of x is equal to 27. Okay, when I'm writing my equation, I'm going to start with the equal sign because I already know what's going to go on the other side of it. It already tells me that it's equal to 87. And so I'm going to go ahead and start with that. Now, it says 60% of x. So pay very close attention to the word of and think about what we've said that means. Of.
I found this on the web for what's attention.
Sorry guys, Siri was talking to me. 60% of x. Of means to multiply. So we know that we're multiplying 60% times x. And I'm going to represent 60% as 60 over 100 because that is what a percent is. And I'm going to put an x next to it to represent multiplication. So the equation that I made for number 2 is 60 over 100 times x equals 87. Okay, now it says to solve the equation. So, in order to solve the equation, we need to get rid of this. In order to get rid of 60 over 100, we have to divide, because here we're doing multiplication and we need to do the opposite. And we're going to need to divide by 60 over 100. 60 over 100 divided by 60 over 100 is going to cancel this whole thing out. But we're going to have to do the same thing over here. I'm going to go ahead and show 87 divided by 60 over 100. Okay, remember, when you're dividing by a fraction, you're really multiplying by the opposite. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to do 87 times 100 over 60. You're going to end up with 8,700 over 60. We have 1 0 we can cross out. And so then you're just left with 870 divided by 6, which you can go ahead and solve with long division. I'm going to move mine up here so that I have room to do so. 6 goes into 8 one time. Bring down the 7. 6 goes into 27 4 times, and it's 24. 27 minus 24 is 3. Bring down the 0. 6 goes into 30 5 times. And I can stop here. The answer is x equals 145. Okay, so 60% of 145 is equal to 87. I went ahead and plugged it back into my equation just to see if it made sense. So 60% of 145 is equal to 87. All right. I would really like you guys to try A and B on your own. 60% of C is 43.2, and 38% of E is 190. I'll go ahead and help you set up the equations. 60 over 100 times C is 43.2. And 38 over 100 times E is 190. Okay, I want you guys to solve these on your own, and so I am not going to do that one for you. Go ahead and try, and if you want me to check or give you the answers, message me, and I can. I'm going to go ahead and move on to 7.3. We can pause the video, and when you're done with 7.2, continue with me. Okay. Puppies grow up revisited. I love puppies. I'm so excited we get to talk about puppies in math. Let's see. Puppy A weighs 8 pounds, which is about 25% of its adult weight. What will the adult weight of puppy A? Okay. I'm going to show you this with the tape diagram. So if this is the adult weight of puppy A, that's the 100% or the whole, we know that 25% is 8 pounds. Okay, we need to get from 25% to 100%. So we're going to go ahead and do 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8. And that is going to give us our answer of 32 pounds. Okay, puppy B weighs 8 pounds, which is 75% of its adult weight. Okay, so I can already tell that this puppy's going to be much smaller. So here's my tape diagram. We know that this is the adult weight here, and that 8 pounds is 75% of whatever this weight is. So if this is equal to 8, I have to think about what is 8 divided by 3, which it does not do evenly. But that answer is going to tell us what 25% is equal to. So let's go ahead and do that. 3 goes into 8 twice, and it's 6. 8 minus 6 is 2. Add a decimal. Bring down a 0. 3 goes into 26 times, and it's 18. 20 minus 18 is 2. Again, bring down a 0. Okay, and it's repeating. So, if puppy A is about 2.66, or we can round it to 2.67 pounds, 25% is about 2.67 pounds, we can figure out that 8 plus 2.67 pounds is 10.67 pounds. Okay, that's just about an estimate. All right, number 3. If you haven't already, write an equation for each situation. Then show how you could find the adult weight of each puppy by solving the equation. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and erase all those tape diagrams that I drew. Okay, an equation for number 1. Well, we know that 8 pounds is 25% of the adult weight. I'm going to put equals 8 here. And I'm going to go ahead and put 25 over 100 times x. And x was the 32 pounds that we solved for. Okay, and for number 2, we know that puppy B weighs 8 pounds, which is 75% of its adult weight. So we're going to have 75 over 100 times x equals 8. Okay, if you haven't already, use these equations to go ahead and solve and see if you got the same answer. Remember, when you're dividing by a fraction, to flip and multiply. Okay, I know that was a hard unit for a lot of you, but if you get stuck, you can always look down here at the steps it's giving you. You can also ask me for help and I can walk you through it. That's all for lesson 7. Remember, the learning target is I can solve percent problems by writing and solving an equation. So if you're feeling not so great about this, if you're feeling maybe like you're at an understanding of a 1 or a 2, send me an email. We can meet on Zoom and go over it some more. Alrighty, that's